Passengers of the first direct flight in 5 years between India and China have touched down after the countries lifted a long-term air travel suspension. The IndiGo airline flight from Kolkata to Guangzhou was the first since 2020. Tensions between Beijing and New Delhi have eased gradually since a deadly Himalayan border clash between the nuclear powers 5 years ago, when at least 20 Indian and 4 Chinese soldiers were killed. For more on this, we can speak now with DW correspondent Adil Bhat in New Delhi. So what's behind this easing of tensions between Delhi and Beijing?
Well, Terry, while on the surface, the motives seem to be clear that the resumption of flight would improve trade and people-to-people ties. But there are underlying strategic calculations as well, which are very complex than they appear. Firstly, the flight resumption, which happened on Sunday, is of course very symbolic. It tells us warming up relations between India and China after the deadly clash that happened in Himalayan region of Ladakh. And that clash had proved now normal engagement since then. We're talking about 2020. Now, many experts say that for India, the move signals a willingness to work separately on two important issues. Firstly, they say that their primary aim is to maintain firmness on border and security issues. And secondly, at the same time, they want to allow normalization of economic and civil relations with China. So from India's perspective, this may help Indian businesses to get more access to Chinese supply chains and also allow Indian tourists and businesses to travel more easily. That's why yesterday we saw a lot of people were very welcoming and happy about it. Also, more importantly, Terry, we need to understand this step comes in a larger global context where the US President Donald Trump had issued massive tariffs on India. So in this context, India sees the global economic scene is shifting. And now as the US and China, they're fighting with tariffs and trade, India is quite trying to kind of position itself as a balanced player, which means they're neither fully siding with the West nor kind of accepting China entirely. So the resumption of flights keeps doors open for trade and communication while maintaining a very cautious position.
So direct flights are now going back and forth between India and China. How significant is this step in terms of normalizing relations between the two countries?
Well, this is quite a significant milestone, and India will try to normalize relations they will try to normalize relationships in the coming days and months also. Because of the changing geopolitical situation, especially it seems that Trump's tariffs have added strategic pressure on the both sides. So while this is a kind of a step that serves as a kind of a signaling or a political message to the world that bilateral ties, they're not frozen completely in the larger game of geopolitics or global politics, we can say. But many analysts in India, they say we have to remember that it's not a full normalization of relations. And they're still wary about these relations, that it can go anytime. Terry, we have to understand certainly that some important security concerns and strategic friction still remains between the two Asian games, especially we're talking about the border issue in Ladakh region.
Right. And
many analysts say that despite the persistence of strategic rivalry, the resumption of flights can be seen kind of a tool of engagement. Also, we have seen, high profile visits from New Delhi in the last few months, which tells us that there is willingness to engage and normalize relations between two countries.
Adil, thank you very much. That was our correspondent Adil Bhat in New Delhi.